Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about point-slope form. Okay, so slope-intercept form we're familiar with, the y equals mx plus b. And if you remember the y equals mx plus b, the m we knew stood for the slope, and then the b stood for the y-intercept, or at least the y-coordinate of the y-intercept. Well, point-slope form is another way that we can write the equation of a line. Basically, what we do is it kind of tells us different information about that line, but still can go ahead and show us what that line would look like. And the way that we do point slope form is this formula right here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, if I had to tell you what each of these things are, one of them should look familiar. It's the m. That is still your slope. That does not change from when we did y equals mx plus b. It's still standing in for slope. The thing that's different about this one is that instead of b, we have this y1 and this x1. And that actually stands for a point that is on your line. And it can be any point that is on your line anywhere. All right. So you can have any single point that falls on your line. You can go ahead and put that in and have it be part of your point slope form to show the equation of a line. What that means is that actually a single line can be written infinitely different ways in the point slope form, because I find the slope and then I pick any point on my line, any one at all, and I can write the equation. All right. Now, just like slope intercept, we're not being creative with the naming here. Point slope, it tells you a point in the slope. Okay, makes a lot of sense. So down here, one thing they're going to ask us to do is be able to write equations into point slope form, giving us different bits of information. In this one right here, they're going to straight up give us a point and the slope and say, hey, we'll go ahead and write it. Well, all I do is I go ahead and use my formula. So the y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm going to do y minus, and this right here, 5 is my y1. That's the y coordinate of the point that's on my line. And then the slope is 4/3. And then the x point, coordinate of my point is 3. So we're going to have x minus 3. And there would be this equation in point slope form. Y minus 5 equals 4/3 x minus 3. All right, so for the very next one, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to say, all right, I'm going to use this y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and I'm filling in the slope and then a point in for the y1 and the x1. Well, in this case, the y coordinate is going to be 2, so I'm going to have y minus 2. And then my slope is a half, so equals 1/2, and then we have x minus 0. Now, some of you may be looking at this and going, Mr. Guy, I really want to simplify that. We'll be getting to simplifying in a moment. We're actually going to take these and try to turn them into y equals mx plus b as we go. But this is the point slope form. Again, it tells me here's the slope and here's a point that falls on my line. I want you guys to go ahead and try number 3 on your own. So pause the video, go ahead and try number 3, and then come back and check your work with me. All right, so here we go. Here's my answer. Y plus 3 equals 2 times x minus 4. You'll notice we had a negative 3 in the y spot here, and so what I did is y minus negative 3. That's going to equal plus 3, and we can go ahead and change it to that. All right. Now, a little bit of talk about vertical and horizontal lines, kind of change subjects a little bit, but we'll get back to the point slope form here in a second. What about if a line's vertical? What about if a line is horizontal? Well, if we talk about the slopes of these kind of lines, a vertical line has what we call undefined slope, because the rise, while the rise is changing, the run is staying the same. It's not changing. So if we think about our slope formula, the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, this x2 minus x1 is going to end up equaling 0, meaning that our slope is going to be undefined. The way that we end up representing that as an equation is we actually end up writing it as x equals a number. That's what we write for a vertical line. And the reason why it's that equation is because, again, the slope is undefined, and so we kind of just end up with this x equals number. Now, for a line that's horizontal, if we think about that one's slope, the slope of that one is going to end up being 0. The y is not changing while the x is. It'd be 0 over a number, which would end up making the slope be 0. So because it's 0, this whole area over here disappears, and we're going to end up with just y equals a number as our equation. So basically what you need to know is that when you're writing a vertical line, it's going to be x equals whatever the x coordinate is. And if you're writing a horizontal line, it's going to be y equals whatever that y coordinate is, all right? So again, we're kind of talking about writing equations of lines when we're given points as opposed to exactly the y-intercept. All right, so in this case, looking at number 6, I'm given a point and it's telling me, hey, your line is horizontal. So it's very similar to these problems up here, except instead of this telling us the slope, it's just saying, hey, horizontal. Now we know the horizontal line means the slope is 0, and I can put it into point slope form and do all that work, but I also can jump right to, I know a horizontal line is y equals a number. So for this one, it's going to be y equals -2. That's the equation of my horizontal line that goes through that point. A vertical line that goes through this one, again, is just going to be x equals the x coordinate. So in this case, it's going to be x equals -3. And that's going to be my vertical line that goes through that point. Again, we're given a point, and then in this case, we're just told horizontal, vertical. Sometimes we'll be told slope. And again, point slope form helps us a lot with these kind of problems. Next thing we're going to have to be able to do is we're going to have to be able to graph using point slope form. So not only can we just graph with y equals mx plus b, but if we're given point slope form, we need to be able to make a graph as well. So how do we do that? Well, it's as easy as pulling out the point and the slope and then using those to kind of graph your line. So for example, I look at this one and I say, all right, what is the point that is in this equation? Now, we have to be very careful when we go to write that point out because our generic formula is y minus y1, x minus x1. We don't want to include that negative when we go to do point slope. So my y1 in this case is 1, right? Y minus y1. So the y1 is 1. And my x is 2. So I almost want to think of it as the opposite of what I see. If I see a positive, I'm going to write a negative. If I see a negative, I'm going to write a positive because it's y minus x minus in that original kind of formula. All right. And then our slope here is 1/2. So now we'll go ahead and plot our line using this. So instead of starting at the y-intercept like we would with our slope-intercept form, we're going to start with the point that we're given. In this case, the point 2, 1. Now my slope is 1/2, so I'll go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and just put points the whole way up. And then I'll go ahead and draw my line going through those points. Same thing with the second one. I'll start by writing my point out. So my x coordinate is going to be 1 because I see a -1. And then my y coordinate, because I see a +3, is going to be -3, right? Y minus y1. So y minus -3 would look like +3. So it's really a -3 there. My slope's -1/4. That one I don't need to change the sign on. And then I can go ahead and graph this. I start at the point, 1, -3. And then I'll go ahead and plot my other points using the slope. Down 1 over 4, down 1 over 4, and then I can go ahead and draw my line. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to try graphing these two. So go ahead, pull out your point and write it down, write your slope down, and then go ahead and use this slope to go ahead and get the other points of your line. All right, so here's two examples of our point slope form here. We have our slope of 4/5 and a -3, 2 would be our point. And so I'm going over -3 up 2 and then up 4 over 5, up 4 over 5 over and over and over again. With number 11, we have -4, -3 as our point and then a slope of -5. So I went to -4, -3 and then down 5 over 1. And then I didn't have any more room to keep going, so I went up 5, left 1 to get my other point. Not the neatest line in the world, but you know. Make sure you're using a ruler if you're doing it on paper. Now, last thing we're going to do for today with point slope form is that we are going to be able to take some points or take some other things you'll see in a moment and be able to turn them into point slope form as well. Basically, this is just like with y equals mx plus b when I would give you 2 points, except it's almost a little bit easier. There's almost less steps. In this instance, what you're going to be doing is you are going to be finding your slope. So you're going to take your points and find your slope. And then you just plug the point right in for your x1 and your y1. So in my instance, what I'm going to be doing in this case is I'm going to take these 2 points, find my slope. So I'll do -8 minus -2 over 9 minus 4. And I'm going to end up with negative 8 plus 2 is going to be negative 6 over 5, which would be my slope. Now, I basically have the information that I had up here when I went to write my point slope form, right? I have a slope and I have a point. Okay, so in this case, I would take a point. Let's say I pick, I don't know, 4, negative 2. You can pick either one. Doesn't matter which one you pick. I'll pick 4, negative 2. I will have the equation y plus 2 equals negative 6 over 5 times x minus 4. Now, you might be saying to yourself, but Mr. Guy, what if I picked the other point? How did you know that you need to pick the 4, negative 2 and not the 9, negative 8? You will get a different looking equation, but they will be equal, okay? As we'll see later when we convert this into y equals mx plus b, they will be equal to the same thing, okay? So there's our equation, y plus 2 equals negative 6/5 x minus 4, all right? Why don't you guys go ahead and try number 13 for me, and then we'll meet back and talk about our answer. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and here is my answer. So you see I wrote down both kinds of equations you could have got. You should have gotten a slope of 1/2. And then if you chose to use 4, 4, the 4 goes in here and the 4 goes in there. If you chose to use 2, 3, the 2 goes in there and the 3 goes over here. And again, it does not matter which point you pick. You will end up with the same equivalent equation. They'll look different, but as you'll see later, if we turn them both into slope intercept, they are the same equation. All right. Now down here we do the same thing. This is normally a problem for us. We look at a line, we go, okay, cool, I'll write in y equals mx plus b. Wait, I can't exactly tell where that y-intercept is. They don't give me a point very much. It looks like it's at -1, but it might be a little bit higher, it might be a little bit lower. I can't tell really well, okay? Well, in this case, we just pick a point that we want to use. So we can still use our rise over run method in order to figure out what the slope is. So I can still draw my triangle and count my rise and run. So let's say I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And so it's going down from left to right, so I can see that my slope is going to be -2. Okay, and I can still use that information, but now I just pick one of these points. So let's see, I'll pick 1, -3 as my point, and now I have all that I need to write an equation in my point slope form. So in this case, it's going to be y plus 3 equals 1 or -2 times x minus 1. And there we go, point slope form. We're done. That's all it is. Last thing we have to do is if we look at a table we want to write in point slope form, basically same sort of thing as when you're given a bunch of points. You're really just given 4 points here. Just pick 2 of them, find a slope between them, and then pick a point to use in your point slope form. So for example, I could just pick the first 2 and say, all right, there's my 2 points I'm going to pick. So my slope formula is going to be 6 minus 4 over 3 minus -1. And I'm going to get 2 over 4 or 1/2 as my slope. And then I go ahead and just plug in one of these points. So in this case, I'll pick this first one. So we'll have y minus 4 equals 1/2 x plus 1. And there we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for talking about point slope form. Hope you have a nice day.